Hi, I'm Alex Pault, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about timekeeping and horology. Before I get started on today's episode, I wanted to thank everybody out there for the really positive response I got to my verbal essay, as it were, on Rolexes and how they're a hyper brand. And I'm really glad that people got what I meant, because some people who are Rolex fanboys can sometimes misunderstand what I said. But I think that because I really, it came from my heart. I wasn't just putting out some kind of a line about, well, I don't like Rolex because I own one myself. I think they're fantastic pieces. I just think that they've gotten to a part of the marketplace where you can't just compare them. You can't really say, well, Speedmaster or Daytona. That's not really a question anymore. I mean, you can make those kinds of comparisons, but again, you're trying to compare Five Guys and McDonald's. I mean, there are better watches out there, but there are no better brands at this point. And that's an old saw. XYZ company makes a better watch, but Rolex makes a better brand, and they do. And their success demonstrates that. One of the comments I got was a question about my thoughts on Patek Philippe, and I thought I'd go ahead and address that here as well, because it's a quick comment. I think Patek and the Triumvirate, and I don't consider companies like A. Lange and Söhne as Triumvirate wannabes, because I recognize the Triumvirate is a Swiss grouping, and companies of that caliber outside of the Triumvirate don't have to really try to get in, as it were, but Rolex wants to get in because they are a Swiss watch company and they want to be considered at the level of a Triumvirate watch. So whereas a Rolex may cost as much as a Patek, just as a watch like an Omega or Zenith or something along those lines will never be a Rolex. A Rolex will never be a Patek. It'll never be a Vacheron. It will never be, like I said, a Lange and Söhne. It'll never be a Grönfeld. Even a company like Ming makes gorgeous watches. They'll never be Rolex. But then again, Rolex will never be them. So it's a sword that cuts in both directions. Rolex's own hyper brand aspect and notoriety actually prevents them from being considered in the same breath as a Patek, because a Patek got to its price point because of what's inside. A Rolex got to its price point because of what's inside, but buoyed by what was on the outside. And marketing can take you a long way. Just ask Apple. I mean, iTunes is a phenomenal product, and it literally broke the back of every other type of music generating and storing system in the world at the time. But it would not have been the success it was without the marketing might that Apple threw behind it. So having said that, again, Rolex can't be compared to Patek because Patek exists in its own space, but it's not a space of everybody knows it, hyper awareness, big marketing buzzword stuff. It's about, I'm going to cut some of this part out. The issue between Patek and Rolex, or Vacheron and Rolex, or Audemars Piguet and Rolex, of all of them, I would say Audemars Piguet is the closest because it has the sportiest connections, and Rolex, at essence, is a tool watch become sport watch that wants to become luxury watch. And you can't separate the word sport from Rolex at this point. You can go to their other lines, Cellini and such, and those are luxury watches. But those are luxury watches from Rolex. Ironically, supporting my point, a Cellini isn't thought of as a Rolex, And it's considered by people who like Rolexes as a cool Rolex because it's not an in-your-face sports Rolex. Obama owns a Cellini, for example. Cool, smart, classy. But they're not going for that, oh, look at me, I got a Rolex on. Look, they're looking for a good watch, which Rolex does make. I just recognized that I made an entire episode on this answer because, well, it is an interesting subject. And so to keep it short, I'll just talk about the answer to the video that I just shot because it was such a good response. And I'll just stop this and restart this and cut a new video with the watch I was going to talk about. And as a teaser, let's go ahead and open the box and show you. I'm going to be talking about the latest acquisition to the collection, my Mont Blanc Geosphere. So I hope that my thoughts on, Rolex in its place, its role, its demand, its command of the marketplace, I hope they're useful to you. And if nothing else, gives everybody something else to debate within the space beyond just simply, is it like a Rolex? Like I said, for my 2 cents, let's just recognize Rolex for what it is, and let's go on with our hobby of watch collecting. So, like I said, I'm going to post these 2 videos back to back. So click out of this and click back in, and we'll do a video on the Geosphere.